Morning, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar with Infinet Cloud, and we thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time and attention. Busy time with holidays and COVID, etc. My name is Julian Griffiths. I'm a director of BrightBridge Solution. My focus at BrightBridge is very much customer orientated, and I work very, very closely with all of our technology and solution partners. And we partnered with Infinet Cloud for a number of years, as we recognize, as do our joint customers, that there are many benefits from this core platform that Infinet Cloud give us. And we're looking forward to introducing those a little bit later. The timing is important as we focus on the impact of COVID-19 on payroll departments, but I'm not going to steal the thunder of Infinet. We're joined by Wayne Crosland and Tristan from Infinet Cloud. They'll introduce them shortly. But also joining us from BrightBridge, who is shunning the stage, is our marketing manager. This is Fiona, and she works very hard to put these events in place, so thanks to her. Just before we start, because we want to get on, it's a short presentation, a little housekeeping, so if you can please keep your videos off, please mute yourself. It's a short presentation, so we'd like to, and it's being recorded, so we'd like to keep the flow. So if you have any questions, please send them directly to me on the chat, and I will collate those and make sure they're all answered in the Q&A. So enough of me. I'll hand you over to Wayne and Tristan to introduce themselves and show us the platform.
Thank you, Julian. So it's Wayne Crosland here. So I'm the sales director for the UK, and co-presenting with me will be our general manager, Tristan. So once again, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's webinar. So the format will be a brief overview of Infinet Cloud, followed by an overview of our live payroll system by Tristan. So just a little bit of background on Infinet Cloud. So the founders of our company previously worked for NetSuite out of Maidenhead in the UK back in the early 2000s. And they were consultants, and they identified back then that there was no on-platform payroll for NetSuite. So being New Zealanders, they subsequently went to Australia and formed Infinet Cloud. And that has expanded rapidly over the last 10 years or so into the New Zealand and UK jurisdictions. So we're part of NetSuite's Suite Developer Network, which is commonly referred to as the SDN Partner Channel, and have been since 2010. In fact, we're one of the original SDN partners. This means that we're certified, tested, and held accountable by NetSuite. We only work with NetSuite. And in 2014, we won the Global SDN Partner of the Year award. So, obviously recently we've had the COVID pandemic. The Chartered Institute of Payroll Professionals, CIPP, conducted a survey earlier this year on the impact of COVID on the payroll sector. So the upshot of this report really points to two underlying factors: the literal physical availability and accessibility to the critical systems, and the disparate nature of payroll data within an organization. So many third-party payroll systems reside on physical infrastructure and require VPNs to access and operate, or they are using a bureau, which adds additional steps to the pay run process. With new legislation being rapidly introduced, payroll teams are having to constantly update their systems and access payroll information to build the required reports, not just from a compliancy perspective for HMRC, but also to report on key business metrics affected by the cost of payroll. So having the payroll system as part of the financial system delivered by a secure cloud-based solution is what we will be discussing today. So Infinet Cloud is a native application. We're actually part of the NetSuite solution. All of our functionality is accessed through NetSuite, and we take full advantage of the NetSuite unified single database, referencing NetSuite classifications such as department, class, and location, as well as interacting with NetSuite time records and various modules such as NetSuite Project Management. So being a native module within NetSuite, we directly interact with the general ledger and chart of accounts. We create the necessary journal entries using core NetSuite classifications. There is no need to import journals from an external system. We are a finance-based application, and we live within the core NetSuite database. And these are the main reasons we are chosen as the payroll solution for many NetSuite customers. To us, it's more than payroll. It's about providing the visibility and detail of what would typically be the largest cost within an organization. We see payroll as a strategic business function that allows our customers to make evidence-based decisions based on the data we produce. So we've been going for 11 years and we've been in the UK since 2013. We're well established and we have over 650 customers globally. The United Kingdom is a key jurisdiction for our company and we've experienced rapid growth recently with 22 customers added last year alone. So one of the reasons why many customers have chosen us is because of the effort we put into making our customers happy and referenceable. And I'll point you to the center of the screen there, which is suiteapp.com. We encourage all of our customers to go and have a look at that. We're the highest rated NetSuite app in the world. And there are a lot of stories in there which you'll probably be undertaking yourself when it comes to reviewing your payroll solution. So here are a number of customers in the UK. We've got a few in common with BrightBridge, Christian Vision, Acora, and TechPay, to name a few. We are a horizontal application and we range in size from the smallest, which is 5 employees, up to our largest, which is Clean Linen over there on the right, who have 1,200 employees paid on a weekly basis and 400 paid on a monthly basis. In fact, Clean Linen is a great example of how a customer has been able to use NetSuite and Infinet Cloud data to calculate the pence per piece to launder an individual item. As you can appreciate, their volumes are in the hundreds of thousands of items laundered each month, and it is paramount that they have the visibility and detail of their costs, the labour force being the largest. Because we are native, we're inside NetSuite, our data in combination with other businesses' data is an integral part of their overall key performance reporting and the underlying calculations. Here we have another case study, more of a recent one, Eunomia. So Eunomia is an independent consultancy firm helping clients achieve a better environmental outcome. So Eunomia needed a new finance system to provide, to drive growth and improvements in their execution. So NetSuite was selected because it had financials, CRM, and project management all within the single unified platform, but most importantly, a single database. So being a consultancy firm, the largest cost within the business was the payroll. And they had outgrown their existing payroll system and they needed to improve the level of reporting and analysis to gain a better understanding of their labour costs within the wider context of their business. So Infinet Cloud was the perfect choice to replace their old payroll system. Because we are native to NetSuite, the users were already familiar with the interface, which we'll see in the demo shortly, but the real benefit was having our data available alongside other financial data within the core NetSuite system. So the outcome was we were able to reduce a large amount of inefficiencies in manual processes, which is common across most of the customers we engage with. And we were able to provide the detailed reporting that they needed in order to drive the growth and improve their execution. So just to summarize, before we move on to the live system, we are a finance-driven payroll solution, and we reference that single unified NetSuite database. And this is what enables payroll to be used as a strategic business function. So I'll hand you over to Tristan now to go through a live demo.
Thank you, Wayne. And I will now shift over to our demo account. And good morning, everyone. So the screen that you all should see if you are NetSuite customers should all be fairly familiar to you. Everything that you see today, as Wayne mentioned, is going to take place within the NetSuite account. We are a managed bundle. So as part of that being installed in your account, we will have our own roles, obviously our own custom records and our own functionality. This is our payroll center. I'm using my payroll administrator's role, and it is the central point to process and analyze not just your payroll processing and your per period processing that you need to do, but also getting scorecards, KPIs, comparisons, and metrics from that data in combination with everything else in the system that helps you make the decisions that we were talking about earlier. Of course, the most obvious benefit of all of this is the fact that it is done in real time, and we are able to do that to the penny based on the fact that all of that data is within the system. To get to this point, of course, we have to process the payroll in the first instance. So as you would expect from any payroll solution, we are got to make sure that we've got employees with enrollments. We've got to make sure we've got email addresses that we can send pay slips to, if that's how we're delivering them. We are interrogating the HMRC data provisioning services and retrieving notifications for tax codes changes, for student loan stops, and all those sorts of things as well. Within the system, we deliver a lot of reports and a lot of capabilities, and they're all done using standard NetSuite functions. So all of the UK reports, for example, that we see down here for our P11Ds and P32 reports and everything else, these are saved searches. So where a search that we have deployed perhaps needs tweaking for your own particular requirements, we fully encourage you to go and do that. And allow you to really build into the system that kind of customized specific business intelligence that makes it key and makes it easier for you to make decisions and run your business. And that may end up looking like a scorecard. This is a very finance heavy scorecard, of course. From a payroll processing perspective, you might have starters or leavers in here. But from the finance perspective, we might want to know what gross pay we're paying out, what commission. Is there a metric that we're looking at within the business? Perhaps we want to know what is the cost per square meter of a dispatch area where we are doing a shipping environment. Are we in a services-based business where we want to be looking at costs by location based on the number of employees? And being able to build those into your dashboard, being able to see that as the heartbeat of your business in real time really does drive home the value, not just of our system, but of the wider NetSuite system as well. For the purposes of today, we're going to be using a demo set of users. These can be seen here. We're going to focus on Lawrence as it is the most common use case for payroll. It is a salary on a 40-hour week, etc. And this individual obviously has the tax codes displayed. We support, of course, all of the new requirements that are coming in from the Welsh tax codes that came in this year. And when there are changes to the thresholds, to the tax rates, when there are new requirements, things like the apprenticeship levy, auto-enrollment, etc. Those are things that we take care of as part of our software as a service agreement, and we will deploy those into your system each tax year in a seamless fashion for you to go and maintain your compliance. So Lawrence is the primary user the primary employee that we're going to look at. And where we do not have to duplicate data, we won't. This is the unified NetSuite employee record. And as we can see here, we've obviously got first name, last name, department, class, location. You might use custom segments, and we support all of those. And because they are already in the system, we don't need to create any fields for them. Where this may look different if you are a NetSuite customer and you are looking at this form, these first 5 tabs belong to me. This is our payroll form. And we've done this to give a payroll lens to any of the manipulation that might need to occur on this employee. So he is full-time, he's paid a salary, and of course we also support wages and the 0-hour concept where we're only paying for the hours that somebody works. This individual is going to receive their payslip via email, although it can also be downloaded from the Employee Center if they have an Employee Center license. And it's going to get emailed to their personal email address, and that can be encrypted with a password if required. They are paid monthly, and we also support weekly and fortnightly frequencies. We have our working pattern. We do also include leave management within the bundle. There's no additional cost to the license where you can request and approve leave from within NetSuite. And if you are interested in that, please do get in touch with Julian and the BrightBridge team. We're more than happy to talk about that further. Of course, we're also going to deal with auto-enrollment, and we support all of the different pension requirements for the qualified earnings triggers, and all those sorts of things. We perform the age assessment or postponement, of course, and then we get down to an area of our system which will be quite distinct and different, and indeed is one of the key reasons why people choose us as their payroll system, because when we do payroll, we are always asking two questions. What is the employee output that I'm seeking and the gross to net to ensure that their pay is accurate? And then what is the employer output? And one of the key employer outputs that we'll look at in a moment is the journals, and where am I going to cost my expenses? Is this employee going to be costed primarily as a cost of goods or an expense? Is there a separate nominal code for directors' salaries and costs and all those sorts of things? We've seen all kinds of permutations of this. It is, of course, one of the key benefits of NetSuite and that dynamic general ledger, and we take as much advantage of that as we possibly can. When we are then moving down onto the employee record, we get into the remuneration, which we call pay components. These can be completely managed and created and amended by yourself. Obviously, not just from a remuneration perspective, but if you want to create a separate pay element for bonuses or for types of time, and you're bringing that in from timesheets, or you're importing that from a time and attendance system or something like that, then you can go and do that. And we're very big on the knowledge transfer to make sure that you can manage that yourself. We support employee loans, payroll benefits in kind, and all those type of scenarios as well. And because the employee is the primary actor in any payroll process, we also want to make sure that we're linking all of the information that we have on there. So, you know, we're linking and making sure that we've got all the pay slips on there, any timesheets and all those sorts of things as well. As we move along the tabs, we've got our tax code information. We do perform logic on national insurance categories based on the age and whether they're an apprentice, etc. The student loan types, we support directors' national insurance, as you would expect. And we also support off-payroll processing requirements as well. So if you do have the scenario where you are dealing with contractors and you fall under the auspices of the off-payroll legislation, we can take a vendor bill and we can turn that into a payroll process and a payslip remittance in a seamless fashion within your NetSuite account. Of course, we're also going to create the statutory forms that are required each year. So we do our P60s. If you're not doing payroll benefits in kind, or indeed you've got benefits that are not yet eligible for payrolling, then we will do the P11D, the P11DB submission to HMRC each year as well. And those are also available to download from the Employee Centre. As an Australian company, pensions are called superannuation, often shortened to super. So this is where we look at our auto-enrollment information. We've got the date that the person was auto-enrolled, you know, whether or not they have wanted to opt out, opt in. If someone opts out and they want to have a self-invested pension, then we cater for all of those as well. We mentioned leave earlier. So again, if you'd like more information on that, please come back to us. But again, we see quite a lot of complex scenarios there that we support as well. We also want to give you a bank file, which we will get to in a moment. So once that the pay run has been created, you will then get a file which you can take and then upload into your bank to process the payment. The other fields that we would reference are, of course, NetSuite fields. They are required for RTI. So the hire date, birth date, gender, and address, we're just going to pick that up from the NetSuite account. One of the final things that you have to do as to ensure the compliance with particularly the tax code selection after you have done the creation of the record and set up the remuneration is ensure that they do have an enrollment record. If they have not given you a new starter checklist, that is a declaration in itself. That means that this up here will say C, and we will be suggesting to you that you need to use a 0T month 1 tax code. This is also where you would enter any P45s and other such things. So once the employee is created within the NetSuite account, and of course that's also where the employee will be making their access, we then need to build the pay run. And one of the biggest changes we see in our customer base is rather than a pay run being something that is done on a monthly basis and it is a mad rush at the end of the month or during that processing period to enter data, to find things out and to get everything updated, is we see our customers building the pay run throughout the period. So if we know that someone is going to receive a bonus, or they're going to receive a pay rise, maybe they've received a speeding ticket, or there are other deductions that need to go into the system, then we can put those in straight away. We can forward date them if necessary, and then we can process them accordingly. And whilst we see here a UI method of entry into this, this can also be done using standard NetSuite capabilities and CSV imports created by workflow, etc. So where you have pay rises, for example, each year, if you have got 100, 200 customers, you're not going to have to go and create 200 of those individually. We can do that as a CSV import. And by we, I mean you can do that as a CSV import. Similarly, with commissions, bonuses, etc., and one-off payments, you can go and put that in the system as well. And those sorts of things also feed into making processing notes on the employee, so that we actually have some reconciliation of what is actually expected for that. We can see that this month we've got Winston and Lawrence have got some one-off payments that are actually going to fall into it. And this can, of course, be manipulated to ensure that it fits as closely as possible to your own processes. When we are doing a pay run, we are compliant with the One World module. So you may have different entities, different PAYE schemes that can all be run within the same bundle. In this instance, we're going to do a standard pay run. You can, of course, do adjustment runs if necessary. I don't care how many times you pay someone in a particular month. Our licensing is purely based on the number of employees you pay in a calendar month. So if you pay weekly, you pay them 4 times, 10 times, you've got to do adjustments. Doesn't matter to us. It is just the distinct number of people. We've selected our pay date. And because we have built the pay run during the period, we're going to jump straight from start to processed pending approval. Now, if you do wish to maintain your existing process and do want to just keep doing that in the period and not worry about it, that's also fine. It is a stage-based system. You might disable auto pay, you might change these steps. That's something obviously that we work with you as part of the implementation. So I've filtered my pay group. I've got my 5 employees. I have an initial view of what the base pay and the bank account, department, all those sorts of things may be. And once I'm happy with that, I can then hit submit. Having done so, it then takes me through, gives me a progress bar. As you can see at this stage, I can add an employee to the pay run if necessary. Indeed, I can delete a pay run, delete a pay slip from the pay run, or roll back and completely delete everything. Of course, if the pay rates or the bonuses haven't been uploaded in time and we need to correct everybody, a rollback is absolutely the way to go for that. But most often where there are issues in a particular pay run, it is because of individual pay slips rather than the whole. So rather than having to roll everything back and take the time to do that, we can just go into each of these individual pay slips and make changes. To get to that point, of course, we might want to look at some of our reporting. So we have up here our ungrouped comparisons. We've sourced our notes so that we can actually see what is expected in here. We can see that there is a tax code change on here. So if there is a taxable difference or tax deducted differences, we can understand why that is. And that helps ensure that we do get an accurate pay run as close to the first time as possible and reduce the need for corrections and amendments. These notes can be made on the payslip so that they can sit there in the NetSuite system, in the system notes and in the audit trail, which helps with any context and narrative should you ever have to come back to it. Of course, it may just be a costing exercise that we need to do rather than a variance one. So these are all information that is in a custom record. It is all reportable. But of course, as a NetSuite Safe Search, you can edit and amend this. You can make your own. You can download it. You can feed it into the new Suite Analytics capabilities, reporting, and other BI tools if you need to. The other output that we want to look at from a reporting perspective is for the pensions. There are only 3 individuals on this particular pension export, and this is, again, the baseline. So depending on who you are, and we've worked with an awful lot of the pension providers, our current capabilities are a CSV export. So you would export this and import it into your pension provider. And we've got existing formats for Nest, the People's Pension, Scottish Widows, Aviva, to name but a few. So having looked at this data, we can then go and have a look at a payslip because we've identified something we want to get a bit of a deeper dive into. As we can see, we can manually add information into this. As I mentioned earlier, we can delete the payslip from the pay run and re-add it if we need to. And the summary information is pulled up into the header level where we can see the year-to-date information. We can have custom fields in here that source and store individual pay elements on here if necessary. So actually, if I wanted to edit the incentive plan because this individual wanted to increase the amount of salary sacrifice for there, I can edit this, I can change the amount, I can click recalculate, and it will redo all of those calculations and that taxable liability for me. Again, making us able, giving us the ability to get an accurate and correct payslip the first time round, which not only reduces overload on the payroll department, but when we are then looking at our payslip, whether or not we want it to be as straightforward as just a couple of boxes versus a little bit more detail where we can have our payments broken out, our statutories, our gross, any payroll benefits in kind might be showing at the bottom here, or indeed any messaging and those sorts of things. That might be a mass message to your employees or an individual message to an employee. That can all go on the payslip, and there are a number of capabilities there, again, to hopefully reduce the number of questions that are coming back to the payroll department. Once we are happy with that, we can then move to our approval process. The approval process does have some variance reporting at the bottom where we've got gross and net. And of course, we can expand on that using the save searches. We do support all the major banks. We've got customers using Barclays, HSBC, Santander, NatWest, Bank of Scotland, etc. These files, the bank file and the pension file, are formats that we test very, very early on with you in the implementation to make sure that we are giving a compliant file that again makes it as seamless as possible once it has all been approved. Once that has all been done, we are then into the pay run. We are an approved pay run, which has been posted and paid. So we've got our EFT file down here. Once we've printed our PDFs, then we'll have a whole, like a summary PDF that will be stored in that field there. But then, of course, we're also getting into one of the key drivers of payroll as a strategic initiative and our journals for posting in particular. Now, this could be, and this is the most common configuration that we've seen, grouped by nominal code, department, class, location. You may want to have a narrative field where you have a bit more information that's pulling in from the payslip details. You may have the need just to combine all of this and not have department, class, location, and then want to use the payroll reports to report on it. So we will always, as you would have experienced with your NetSuite implementation, work backward from the output. What is the decisions, or what are the decisions that need to be made? And then what is the best way to configure the system to ensure you're getting the data that you need? So we've created our expenses, we've credited our liabilities, we've tagged the various suppliers in there as well so that it falls into standard vendor management. If necessary, we can make payments to these payroll suppliers in the net wages file. The most common use for that is where there are court orders and earning arrestment orders. We just want to wing that off straight to the courts with the appropriate reference number, whereas things like pensions are often done as a direct debit. HMRC would be done through accounts payable, and that would normally fit within a standard process for yourselves as a business. Of course, we're also creating the payment file because we are creating the bank file, and indeed journals could look as simple and straightforward as a debit and a credit depending on the configuration. So once those journals have been created, this is what we call the home bucket. If we then need to do a reallocation on there, perhaps based on an element of an hour against a project, case, task, or event, and you want to reallocate that, then we can do those things based on the timesheets and the information that is within NetSuite. So if you do have particular requirements in the general ledger for your reporting and for your labor costs, we do a lot of good work with the Institute of Occupational Medicine for Horizon 2020 and all those sorts of things. And it really does give project P&L and labor profitability that accuracy that we talk about, that to the penny analysis that enables the kind of decisions that, unless the information is in a consolidated place, really is difficult to get to. Of course, to close off the payroll side of things, we also have our RTI. So having initiated a full payment submission, we can then review this information. All of the data that is going to be submitted is made available to you for review. And once you have submitted that to HMRC, you will have a nice green box from HMRC saying thank you. You will have access to the raw data that was actually submitted. You will also have the correlation ID, so that where there is an audit or where there is a conversation to be had with HMRC about what has been declared and what should be showing up in the liability, then that is a conversation you can have with confidence and certainty, because the data is all there in a closed loop. Of course, from that, we also then want to do the employer payment summary, where you can claim your employment allowance. If you are over the threshold for the apprenticeship levy, then that will pick up for there. It will declare and calculate your recoverable statutory payments for maternity, paternity, shared parental, and adoption. And again, is all available in there. Which means once all that information is there, if you did want a blended cost applied to your departments and to your costs that included employers' national insurance, apprenticeship levy, employers' pension, and any of the other costs as well, the information is there and accessible and possible for us to go and do. Of course, to finish the process on a monthly basis, you will then go to your HMRC gateway, you will check your liability, and what we're looking for is on a per period basis that the total due matches to the penny. Assuming that it does, you can make that payment, and that would then close out the payroll period. That concludes a payroll process for an entire period, and whether you are doing it weekly, monthly, or whatever else, it will be done consistently in a scalable fashion, and all entirely within your NetSuite account. That also concludes everything I wanted to show you today. Thank you very much for your time, and I will hand you back to Julian.
Thanks, Tristan. That was very comprehensive. Thank you very much. Enjoyed that. We have got a couple of questions actually from the people attending today. So I'll fire them at you. The first one is, can you explain native NetSuite a little bit more?
Yes, certainly. So the SuiteCloud Developer Network has a number of different badges for their suite apps, ranging from an integration where you would connect to an external system to gain your capabilities, hybrid, which is, as you'd imagine, somewhere in the middle, versus what we do, which is a native application. Which means that all of our capabilities are done using NetSuite's own suite scripts, custom records, etc. And I suppose the best way to try and explain that is if NetSuite wanted to, they could buy us tomorrow, and the day after we would be on their price list as a module.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. And, I think it's an obvious question that's come in, probably one you've had before is, typically how long does this take to implement from start to finish?
Yes, indeed. And it's, of course, a lot can depend on the complexity and the size of the business itself. The way that we obviously approach this is backwards from a go live. The approach we take is done as two parallel period comparisons that we want to validate against existing systems and whatever else. So from an elapsed time period, we would be aiming on any size of implementation to go from start to go live in no more than 3 months.
Oh, okay. And does that have to be sort of coinciding with the tax year end or any time in the year?
Yeah, so April is a good time to do it because the year to dates obviously clear out and everything else. But because we do the 2 periods of parallel, anywhere up to month 2 or week 2, indeed, if you're on a weekly period, to us is a new year implementation. We do year-to-date implementations and, you know, obviously don't have a problem doing any of those. What can often be more of a driver is the customer's financial year and what they report on, particularly when it's a NetSuite implementation. They don't want to report on 2 ERPs for these kind of things. So it's a bit of a hockey stick. You've got a low risk and lesser cost implementation, which are go lives from April to June. It steadily kind of increases up to Christmas. And whilst we have got go lives already this year scheduled for January and February, at that point, there's only 2 months until April. So that is something that the customers generally tend to get pushed into rather than volunteer for.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And what you mentioned obviously about, it goes back to that native NetSuite and built for NetSuite. There's sort of, as we all know, that there's 2 major upgrades from NetSuite each year. How does that affect and how does that work with your payroll updates versus the NetSuite updates? How's that handled?
Yeah, so as part of being members of the Suite Cloud Developer Network, we do get access to the NetSuite releases long in advance of customers and most other members of the NetSuite ecosystem. And in the normal way of things, NetSuite will do 2 releases every single year. That will include functional capabilities. I mean, I mentioned Suite Analytics, for example. You know, that came out. We want to make sure that our stuff works with that, any new UIs and new capabilities. So not only do we need to make sure that our existing capabilities are not affected, we also want to make sure that we're taking advantage of all the new stuff as well. So all of our stuff works in sandboxes. All of our stuff works in the release preview, and we spend a lot of time every year on those 2 releases doing all of the testing, and we do encourage all of our customers to do all the testing, not just for our stuff, but for NetSuite as well, to make sure that those updates are as seamless as they can be. In the event that there are changes and there are hiccups in that of course is on us. That falls into the bracket of our stuff isn't working, so we will go and fix it.
Yeah, cool, excellent. That's good to know. That's it from the questions from our attendees today. I think because your demonstration was so comprehensive and self-explanatory, that sort of wraps up, and we're just getting to a couple of minutes from the end there. So that's good timing, I think, from our point of view. So I think from that point of view, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Thanks for Fiona for organising, and Tristan and Wayne for presenting. Personally enjoyed that. Any questions, follow-up that you need, our details are on the screen. So please feel free to contact us. Enjoy the rest of the week.